Excellent. Thank you very much, Lisa. Well, as Lisa was saying, my name is Matthew Wiles and I work for the Department of State Development, Infrastructure and Planning. And this webinar today is targeted on capability statements and supply opportunities. I believe that we have an ability to chat and actually type in. And if any of you who would like to just put up your names and what your businesses are, when we get a little bit further down and we're actually having a look at a capability statement, we might be able to use a few, I guess, more pertinent examples instead of using just templated stuff. So it'd be great if you could just pop a few things down on there and I can see them as they pop up. So what we do is we may as well just get started. The overview of the webinar today is to assist you in gaining knowledge on what information is required in a capability statement and what the document might look like. And once we've created the capability statement, using procurement or tender tools such as ICN to actually build your capability statement, and then how to find projects. We're also going to have a quick look at, once you've done your capability statements, how to find out where you fit inside a supply chain. And we're going to use for this the tool, the ICN Tier Barometer. For those people who might not have used it, if you have, you've probably got a good idea, but we'll run over it as well. And then lastly, to finish off, we're going to look at what resources are available to assist businesses in moving forward. So if you identify today that that's something you want to learn more about, or there's some other opportunities, we're just going to have a look at what else is out there at the end. So we're going to kick off with what is a capability statement, because not everybody's done one before. And a capability statement is a promotional or marketing statement about your business and its capabilities, its skills, and a way to advertise your company. You know, what do you do best, and what would enable another business to hire you? What do you really, really do? One of the main areas an organisation requires a capability statement is when it's trying to get a contract. And that contract might be through a government, it might be state, federal or local. It could be a public entity. You might be applying for a tender for a major project, for example. Or it could even be that you want to subcontract to a higher tier provider. I just want to cover, when I say higher tier provider, we'll take the Sunshine Coast Hospital, for example. Its tier 1 provider is Lend-Lease. Now, Lend-Lease is going to manage that entire multi-million-dollar contract, but they're not going to do every component of it. Inside their supply chain are going to be other providers. And a good example of this is someone's fitting out handrails, for example, and they have the handrail contract. They might not hold that contract directly through Lend-Lease, which is the tier 1. They might hold that subcontract through a tier 3 contract holder. So inside the supply chain, I guess, is like a little bit of a food chain. And we'll go over that a little bit later as well when we get down to the tier barometers. Now, I like to look at a capability statement as an elevator pitch. You know, it's like that example. You've just walked into an elevator, you're standing next to someone you don't know, the door's shut, and you're going up or down, and the person turns to you and says, so what do you do? Well, you need to be able to tell them exactly what you do in a really precise way so that they understand it, so that if they required it, they'd want to purchase it from you, and in a limited time frame, because you don't quite know when the doors of the elevator are going to open. So it's about really understanding your business. So we'll start with capability statements. Now, everyone out there really understands what their business does. You've all been working in it for some time. It might be, you could be second or third generation inside that business. But why I say capability statements is, it's really good to do one really big statement, an overarching statement outlining everything the business does. And not only everything the business does, but every standard that you work to, every piece of machinery that you've got, what that machinery can do. It might be a laser cutter, it might be a cherry picker lifter. It's really important to understand all of those things because your customer might be looking for something specific. They might need, for example, a window cleaner who can get to 3 stories high, and they're looking for somebody who has the machinery to do that, and somebody who has the accreditations to use it, and somebody who might, let's say, have working at heights to sign off their risk assessment. That's what your customer might be looking for. And it's hard to know what your customer is looking for, so it's good to have something really broad to start with. Now, a broad statement is useful, but a customer's generally looking for something specific. So what you need is a second capability statement. And this is something that's really tailored to that individual contract or that individual customer, what they might be requiring. So the first one, it's not something you just do and leave alone. Every time you might add a new customer, add a new certification, add a new partnership, you need to add that into the big capability statement, and you need to be able to remember to drag it down into that smaller, more tailored statement. So we're going to have a look at a couple of these templates. Now remembering the template you're just looking at now is for the long version. And if you jump on Google, you can find lots of these templates. You can even find templates on the Queensland Government site, and I'll give some links to those right at the end. But this is an overarching capability statement. And in here, as I said, you will put everything down in here. You'll put your management systems, your track record, all of your contact details, your high-value items, your secondary proprietary information, all sorts of things. And some of your customers may never want to know what these are, but it's a good idea to paint a picture about what customers might be asking for. Now, the second capability statement we're going to have a look at, and the one that we're going to use today to go over, is a quad chart. Now, I know this may look a little fuzzy on your screen. I'm sorry about the quality, but we do have another one coming up shortly that we can break down. Now, a quad chart is a tool that lots of businesses use to have a look at who their supply chain might be. Examples of these businesses, I guess, is the Australian Defence Force. They use this. When they ask for a tender, they ask you to fill out a quad chart. The quad chart's also being used in the Wide Bay Burnett as the marketing tool for their capability directory, of which they're using to assist procurement industries, such as the serious mine and well manufacturers, to obtain local procurement. So to purchase locally to provide for their supply chains. And as you can see, it's really an A4 one-page grab of what your business does. And I guess the name says it all. It's a quad chart. It's broken into 4 easy individual sectors. Now, before I go through those sectors, I'm just going to show you a picture of a completed quad chart. Now, this one's actually from a US military quad chart, because actually that's where quad charts started. But you can see they've actually used this in a very visual, catching way. And that's part of what a quad chart is. It's not just bullet points. It's actually you getting out there marketing it. Now, one of the local businesses who have put in a quad chart, they actually had a little YouTube link where that pretty picture is at the top left corner. And that actually directed businesses who were looking at their quad chart to actually jump on YouTube, and they were actually showing some of their machinery in operation. They're actually showing what their capability on YouTube was. So it's not just a static tool to apply for tendering. It's also a tool that you can email possible customers, or if the phone rings or someone sends you an email and asks what your business does, you could use the quad chart as a tool to market yourself. So, 4 quadrants. The first quadrant on our chart is the product. And here's where you can insert pictures or information on what you do. This quadrant is designed to be expressive. You know, really show people what you're doing. Try and make this section eye-catching. It's like that little yellow pages ad, but it's more specific. The second quadrant we're going to have a look at, and this is the one that's all about your capability. And this is considered the driver quadrant. This is where being precise, using bullet points, is really important. It's about really building those capabilities and showing people what you do. And don't be vague. You know, really provide quantitative measures. You know, really show the capability of your business in here. How big it is. How much of something that you can produce. That's what needs to be in there. And the discriminators. So what sets your business apart from others? how do your capabilities provide value to customers? You know, what innovation features have you built in? And if you have built in innovation features, does that change the price? Are they getting a better value for money? Or is it increasing through life costs? So if you've added some innovation to something, is the project or the product lasting longer and therefore it's better value for money? They're the things that you really need to get in there. And all of these items are going to come from that overarching, that really big capability statement you did before. Now the third quadrant we're going to have a look about, and this is probably just as important or more important than any of the others, is what I look at as the amiable quadrant. It's who are your key customers? So who have you worked for before? If you've worked for the Department of Main Roads and you're making railings, you need to put that on there. It's really important that they understand that you've been able to supply to really big customers, who are really small customers. And who are your key partners? Who have you worked with before, or who are you working with now to build your capability and capacity? It's interesting when people are looking for businesses, if they know that you've worked for maybe a competitor, or you've worked for a similar business, or you've worked for a business that requires similar standards, they're attracted to you because they know that somebody's already purchased your risk before. And when I say purchase your risk, is they understand that you are able to produce that component to the quality and standards that they want. And now that brings us to the last quadrant, and this is the analytical quadrant. This is all about your qualifications, accreditations, and contact details. When I say qualifications and standards, I mean if you have quality assurance processes that you've put in, or environmental standards, health and safety standards, business management standards, they need to go in there. If you, let's say, are a welding business and you weld to a certain certification, that needs to be in there. This is where other businesses can look at you and say, you're professional, you use business development tools. I know that if you've got, let's say, a quality assurance standard, I know that it's going to come out to this standard that I'm expecting. So that gives them the confidence to now go forward, contact you, apply for quotes, ask for what your tender application could be, and along those lines. Name and your details. But then they're also going to build a capability statement. If you've done a really large capability statement or a quad capability statement before, you're going to understand how to answer it. So I've spoken to a few businesses that use ICN. Actually, I've spoken to lots of businesses that use ICN. And it's amazing that once we go back and have a look at their capability statements and how they're going to put them in, the difference in the response ICN can give you. Okay, so it's really important to understand a capability statement. And I've got a really good example for this, and it actually has nothing to do with ICN. Just recently, the Department of State Development has been working with the Queensland Defence Envoy in trying to get local businesses into the Queensland Defence supply chain. Now, one of the businesses who are trying to go for one of the defence projects had filled out a quad chart. But inside the quad chart, they'd missed something that they just do on a daily basis. They just always do that. And they didn't realise that the customer didn't know that they always did that. And if it wasn't for the Queensland Defence Force Envoy's, I guess, keen eye in picking up that it was missing, that business may not have had the opportunity to tender. Now, that's a really big point. And what they missed was an Australian standard that they worked to. And this other business was looking for that standard. That's what they really wanted. So it's really important when you're putting into ICN your capability statement that you understand what you need to get in there. Be precise. You know, really sort of get down into what you do as a business. So once you've registered, then you can search for suppliers. So you might be looking for people to supply to you, so you can go on and look for what other businesses are doing. But the main one is, and the main tool it's set up for, is to search for opportunities. Now, ICN have just done a major upgrade in the last couple of weeks. So if some people out there are already on ICN, when you go back to it, it's going to look a bit different. It's the same tool. So when you're looking for search opportunities, you can still search by industry. So you might be interested in what opportunities are in oil and gas, or steel fabrication, or rail and transport, or contract services. So there's a whole range in there. And once you get in and have a search under those industries, or all of those industries, work packages will pop up. Now at the moment, there's over 100 major projects in ICN. So it can be a bit daunting. So it's specific what you want to register for initially. But after you spend a little bit of time on it, you can start to get the handle of it. But it's something you've got to work on. You can't just put your capability statement in there and walk away and expect work to come to you. It's about reading those work packages, understanding what those businesses want, and then tailoring things a little bit and getting in contact with those businesses to have that opportunity. Now, one thing ICN has done, and I think it's a really good example of what this business can do, is ICN took the Sunshine Coast Hospital and Lend-Lease came out with 10 work packages. So the Sunshine Coast Hospital is massive. They broke it down into 10 packages. ICN, with the assistance of the Sunshine Coast Regional Council, then went to Lend-Lease and broke those packages down into 260 packages. And that meant that local businesses could enter the supply chain easier. And that's what ICN is really about. It's about making it easier for you to get in and be able to have a go at getting the work. So when you think about it, regionally, everybody would love major projects and projects themselves to be broken down so that local businesses can try and get them. Now the legacy of that is that we have better businesses, we keep the money regionally, and we increase employment. And there are three major legacies from doing that. And lots of businesses are really starting to become aware of what local procurement is. I was just up in Gladstone a couple of weeks ago listening to the Gladstone Engineering Association talk about the ConocoPhillips gas trains that they are putting in on Curtis Island. And they're talking lots about local guys delivering services. And when they're talking about local, they're not just talking Gladstone, they're talking local as in who can locally provide them services. The reason for that is they're going to be pumping gas out of that facility for the next 30 years. They want people who can get there and service their business and industry. Get there quickly. You know, if they're 4 or 5 hours away, that's excellent. Because if they're going to bring a part up from Melbourne or Sydney or China, they could be shut down for a long time. And if they're shut down, it's millions of dollars an hour. So the other thing that ICN has just done, once you've got on and had a look and searched your opportunities, they've added a new feature just recently, and one that is specific to what I was just talking about. They've put in the ICN Regional Gateway. And this is to help local government authorities and councils find the right local suppliers. And again, it enables you to search for suppliers like you can do to fix your supply chain, but it allows you to search for opportunities. And I believe that they are currently looking at doing a pre-qual in there. It may be up, I haven't sort of dug in since the last changes a couple of weeks ago, but you can actually go and register your business and pre-qualify for work packages that could be coming out. That doesn't mean you still have to go searching, but it will give you an idea about where your business is. And that brings us to the third section of our discussion today, which is where is your business? Where does it sit in the supply chain? Now, here's a little a web page snip of the ICN tier barometer test. And once you're registered in ICN, any business can go and do this. It is fairly broad, but it's interesting because they break down the work package into 4 groups, starting at $2.5 million and ending at $500 million plus. And they break it into 4 groups. So if you're a smaller business, you can jump onto, let's say, the $2.5 million work package tier barometer test, and you can test your business against that. And it gives you a scorecard and an action plan. And it's really important to know where your business sits. And the great thing is that each business, let's say tier 1, has certain requirements, and at the moment, health, safety and environment are the 3 really big measures. And so they may weight their tiering against health and safety and environment. And so you could actually have a look on here and see where you score. You can have a look at your risk management systems, you can have a look at your staff competencies, you can have a look at your quality control, you can have a look at your environment, and you can have a look at your safety management systems. And also in the top line, you'll see that red line is company capacity. That tells a business, from the information that you've put in, how much of something you produce. So they know if they need to, let's say, find 10 people to do the job, or they may come to you and realise that you have the capacity to just choose you as that business to do the whole job. So this gives you a score. And in this example, it's a tier 4 company. And down the bottom you can see the action plan with all of those relevant steps that need to be doing to better your business to apply for a higher contract. Unfortunately, that's where this tool ends. And so lots of businesses after doing this sort of can say, well, where do I go from here? And that brings us to the last segment that we're going to have a look at today, which is the resources. Now in here I'm going to give the department that I work for a little bit of a plug, but I'm also going to talk about some other projects that are out there, and I'm actually going to give you the contact details of someone that you can contact who can direct you, not just at state government resources, but local government resources and private sector and federal as well. So the State Department of Infrastructure and Planning at the moment is building a toolbox of all sorts of projects and assistance that is out there to help businesses enter supply chain tendering. So that includes a network called Best Practice Management. And this is across all industries. And it's looking at lean and how you can make your business more competitive, looking at the processes that you use. And this network is actually run by industry. And through that network, we've been able to create supply chain. So one business turns up to a network, realises they can deal with another business, and they basically start building partnerships between themselves. And we've also been able to enable businesses to decrease their wastage. And when I say wastage, I mean wastage right across their business, and that enables them to become more competitive. Coming up in the new year, we have accessing supply chain opportunities. And this is very much about workshops around building that capability statement. So it's workshops where you're sitting down learning how to do it. They're also looking at, inside that, they're looking at tendering for government. So when you think of the massive amount of government money that is spent inside our region every year on roads, healthcare, education, construction, housing, IT support, telecommunication infrastructure, it's enormous. And it's really good to be able to understand how to tender for that, how to get a slice of that action. And we also have a mentoring for growth that's coming up. Mentoring for growth is about assisting. It's really one-on-one stuff. Well, it's more than one-on-one. It's 3 or 4-on-1, where you get to sit down with a panel of experts who can actually spend time with you developing your business, finding those pathways and how to get there. And then always on the Queensland Government website there is the Business and Industry Portal, which has lots of tools. I was about to say endless, but that's a lie. There is an end to it. But they do have lots of tools. There are webinars, there are templates, there are information packages, there are government protocols and standards that can help industry and businesses get where they want to go. So, for further information I've got down here is to contact Bridget Edwards. She's in the Maryborough office, and her telephone number and her email address is there. And you can contact her for any further information. And if it's something relevant to what we've spoken about today, she can pass you on to me, and we can have a further chat about any of those items that we've spoken about. That pretty much brings me to the end of our session.